Welcome to Greg's Reel Revival. Today we're working on a 2004 Shimano Chronarch MG or 50 MG. There you go. Great little reel from back in 2004. Look at this free spool, and this is before it's been serviced. Look at this. That's incredible to me. All right, so we're gonna take this thing apart, clean it up a little bit, and then we'll get it back together. If you all have watched the Shimano Calcutta video, that was one of my buddy Sean's reels. This is another reel of his that he brought to me at the same time. So I'm gonna get these back to him so he could hit the water with them. All right. Next thing is our little handle nut here. It's kind of small. All right, that was really unexpected. I'm gonna have to pause that real quick and go get me a wrench that'll fit that. That's not the normal 12mm wrench. So give me a second and I'll be right back. All right, didn't take long. This is a 10mm nut. So you can see up here at the top, I'm just laying these out in the order I take them off. So when I'm ready to put them back on, I will know which order to put them back on in. Alright, so we have that, the handle, we have that little washer there. Here's our drag star. Here is our spring. And let's see, maybe I can use this to use that drag star to get that started there. Alrighty. And next thing, if anything falls out there, we're going to take out these 4 side plate screws and we're going to kind of lay them in the same configuration up here on the paper towels as they are here, so we'll know where they go when we put them back in. Sometimes they're different sizes, sometimes they're not, so just better to be safe than sorry. So put that one there. There, and that does look to be a little bit shorter. The bottom one here. There we go. The bottom one right there. And kind of this back one here. I do service reels for people, so if you are looking at getting a reel serviced, we know it's springtime, everybody's fixing to start fishing again if you haven't already. If you've got a reel that you want cleaned up, just holler at me at gregsreelrevival@gmail.com and I will get that. Well, I'll respond to you, let me know what you have, and we'll figure out what it would cost to get it serviced and sent back to you. All right, all of our screws are out. See if we can just kind of pull on the spool tension knob there to get it loosened. Let's see. Tell you what, these drag washers here look like they're about ready to come off. So let's see if we can get those off. Maybe that'll make These are the spool tension, drag tension washers. So we're going to lay them right there. They are filthy, filthy, filthy. All right, let's see if we can take this off now. Alright, so that comes out. You'll see there is one more in here. So this first one is just a flat washer. Then you have our 2 tension washers. And it looks like we'll just push out. This is the roller clutch bearing right here. That basically the anti-reverse. So we'll see. We'll make sure we set that. This side right here goes up. And it's just dirty. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just dirty. So we'll look really right there. We have a bearing underneath here. So let's get that out. There's a little tension spring right there. There's a little bearing clip. Put your finger over these when you get them out so they don't go flying across the room on you. Alright, so that came out. We'll set that right there. There's a little plastic washer. Actually, there's a couple of them. Okay, so we have a little plastic washer. And then there's a little clip in between them. Then there's another little plastic washer. And it looks like this is one of the springs that goes on the pinion yoke. Alright. So we're going to take these 2 springs, we'll put them right there. They're kind of like the tension clips. They kind of tend to shoot across the room on you if you're not careful. All right, next thing we're going to do, let's take off this. This is our pinion gear and our pinion yoke. Let's see if we can get that off. If we can't. All right, we'll just take the main gear off first. All right, there's your main gear. We're just going to try to lift that whole thing up here. This little collar here fits down into those 2 little notches. So we got that right there. Then we're just going to lift this whole thing off. And let's go through that real quick. This is going to be your drag stack. Okay. First thing is just this top plate here. Got a lot of grease on it, but nothing really wrong with it. All right, so we've got the top plate. Then we have our drag washer down here. See if we can get that out. A lot of times it just takes, kind of gets, there we go, get something underneath the edge of there. So that's next. And here's our main gear. There's nothing on the back of this main gear. Alright. Alright. Underneath that main gear. We forgot something else here and that's my fault, but we'll look here. Underneath the main gear, there's a little spacer. And underneath that spacer, that's our click ratchet right there. Basically, when you push that thumb bar down, you'll see that locks in right there. When you turn this, that click ratchet's gonna release that, and then you'll be able to reel back in. Okay, all right, so we got our drag stack there. Then we're gonna take off this click washer here. All right. I cannot 100% tell if this is attached to this main gear or not. So I'm not going to push it right now, okay? So real quick, we have our drag stack. Let's take off our pinion gear and our pinion yoke. And then let's take off these two screws, then we can take off this shaft, I believe. Sometimes there's a bearing under this shaft. If there is, obviously, we would like to service that. And then once we get that shaft off, we'll be able to tell if that click ratchet is part of it or not. Alright, that just pulls right off there. On the bottom here, we have a gear. Yeah, it looks like that is one piece. Okay. So what we need to do to get that bearing off is there's a little clip right here. We'll just take something, get it in there, and we'll just see if we can pop this clip off. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Just be patient with it, it'll come out. Those C-clips are kind of small, so sometimes it's hard to get them to come out of there. All right, give me just a second. I'm going to work on this and then we'll be right. All right, I just had to lay that shaft on the side and use this pick to get in that little space on the E-clip and get that off. Okay, so we have the E-clip here. We have the little brass washer that was underneath it. Next thing that comes off is our bearing. Then we're going to have this little metal piece here. And then this gear. Have that gear. Looks like both sides are the same on that. Let's see. Yes. And then again, this is all one piece, so there's nothing to do here. So we will get that put back together. All right. So that is it for all we're going to do on this side. We'll get all this kind of cleaned up in here, and we'll come back to that here in a bit. Okay. Next thing is this side comes out, so you can take out the spool. There you have the spool. There is not a bearing on here, so that makes that easy. We'll just make sure all the insides of these are cleaned up with a little Q-tip, and then we'll put a drop or so of oil on there. So we're good. Okay. See what we have here. There is another bearing right here, so we're going to get that off real quick. That bearing right there. Then we're going to pull this one out. All right, I got it most of the way out there. There we go. All right, now, I showed you everything that was on top of this last bearing. We never did, or I never did, take out the bearing itself. So, same thing there. Looks like that should just come right on out, or at least be pushed right on out. All right, so that comes out the front. Push that out. And that goes right there. All right, for my bearings, how I treat them is I will set them in some acetone or in some like Coleman lantern fuel, some white gas, 15-20 minutes, and let it work all the greases and oils out of there. You can see the rest of this oil is, or the rest of this reel is pretty dirty. But I'll set them in that for 15 or 20 minutes, work all that stuff out of there. I'll bring them out, make sure they air dry for just a couple of minutes. That stuff evaporates pretty quickly. And when we do that, I will put just probably one drop of, this is just Shimano Bantam oil. It's real super thin. So I'll just put a drop of oil on that, and then we'll be good to go. All right, so there's our breakdown. I'm going to get all this cleaned up real quick, and then we will come back and we'll get it put back together. All right, welcome back. Well, you were gone. I have taken this shroud off here and cleaned the line guide, so that's ready to go. What I've also done is I went ahead and put that bearing back in there. Like I said, I just soaked it in some white gas for a while, let it air dry, and then just put one tiny small dab of oil on it and put the retainer clip in there. I also did that for the bearing and the plastic pieces and the retainer clip on this side right here. So I'm just gonna screw that spool tensioner cap on there, and we'll be good on that part. All right, we had quite a bit of cleanup to do, and that's fine. First thing we're going to do here is we're going to put this spool shaft back together and get that in there. All right, if you remember, first thing that went on was this gear. It does not matter which way it goes. It's exactly the same on both sides. Next thing we had was a little washer that came off of this piece when I took it off. Shiny side goes down. Let me find the little bearing. Here's the bearing that goes on there. We have this little brass washer that goes on top. The next thing we have is this little C-clip. So let's see if that's going to treat us right and let us get it on there pretty easy right now. Alright, got it most of the way on. Again, same thing for that bearing. I just put it in the Coleman fuel or the white gas, and come on, Greg. Then let it air dry. Okay, you'll see there's a little hump up there. Looking at the schematic, that goes to the inside of the reel. So we're just going to reinstall this. Set that right in there. And we're going to get a couple screws here. Find a screwdriver. I dabbed a little bit of grease on there just so it is easier for me to get a hold of these screws because they're small. Apparently, since I'm talking about it, it's not going to make it any easier. Alright, got that one in there. That one going right there. I just barely tighten that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this other one in. Just barely tighten it down there. And I'll snug that one up just a tad bit. And same thing on this side. All right, so our spool shaft is on there. All right, now let's go ahead and let's put on the pinion gear and the pinion gear yoke and the pinion gear. Tell you what, all right, let's do this real quick. This will help us. Okay, we're gonna put the spool back in. All I've done on this spool, make sure I got all that off there. Cleaned up that. I cleaned out these with just a Q-tip. Same thing in here, and just same thing on the outside to make sure they were clean. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this back in here. And then I'm going to put one little dab, or about half a drop of that super thin oil right there. That's going to ride on the inside of that bearing. So we do want a tiny bit of lubrication on that. Lift this side plate up. Press it back down. Come on, baby. We're good to go. All right, so we're good on that side. All right, give me just a second. I have got a dog that wants outdoors, so we're going to let him out real quick. All right. Appreciate your patience on that. They will be wanting back inside here in a little bit, so don't think we're done quite yet. All right. Next thing I'm going to do, here's the spool shaft. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of oil on that as well. You'll see some people actually put grease on their spool shafts. I do not like that. I feel like it slows the spool spinning down, and you saw how good this free spool was, and I certainly don't want to mess that up. All right, next thing we're going to do, pinion yoke. There's some kind of angled sides. They're hard to see on each end. Those face down. So it's going to go that way. And the smaller gear side faces up. All right, so get us a little bit of real grease there. That's way too much, but at least I won't have to go looking for it. All right. Take this and just put that on those little teeth there. All right. Don't lose sleep over it too much, because this gear here, gear sits just right there. That goes over the spool shaft. Let's see if I can. Just kind of see what we got going on there. All right. Let's do this without the spool in there, and then we'll put that spool in here just a bit. All right. So we've got the little angled pieces right here. Like I said, they go down. And that pinion gear sits in just like that. There we go. Just a little bit tight there, and that's all right. Okay, so when that spool goes in, that spool shaft's going to go right through here. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to start putting on the drag stack. We have this clicker gear here. Like I said, what that does is when you cast, you have free spool when you cast, and then when you turn that, that kicks this down, and then you have, it engages the reel again. Okay, before we do that, we're just going to kind of put a couple of drops of oil here on these places that work or that move around. Not a whole lot. All right. I am going to actually put a tiny bit of grease on this here, and that's going to share grease with the plastic gear under there. And like I said, it doesn't take a whole lot. All right, those are going to share, and they're different sizes, so that's about all you're going to need there. All right, next thing we're going to do, you remember there was a spacer. Nope, that's for that. Sorry, wrong one. Here's your spacer. That goes on right there. All right, we got to let the dog back in. Okay, so we have the spacer. Next thing we have is the drag stack right here. This is really, really light gear. I'm going to say that's probably made of magnesium. So first thing I'm going to do, this is the drag washer. It's looks like it's just some kind of like a polycarbonate or something. I'm going to go ahead and put just a tiny bit of drag grease on here. You don't need a whole lot. Just enough to kind of make it sticky. Okay, so that's going to set right in there. Next thing we got is, this is the top. So that just sits right there. Okay, now what we're going to do real quick is we're just going to put some grease, again, in these little grooves. I generally just kind of dab a little bit on there and just kind of brush it along. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to share with the other gears. I just don't like too much because you just have a bunch of grease in your reel that's splattering around in there and not really doing anything. Okay, we set this right on top of here. That comes apart, no big deal. All right, so once we get down here, let's just kind of go slow. That's going to mesh with that pinion gear. All right, let's go right there. All right, so we're good on that part. Next thing we're going to do, let's put this collar on. There's the two little slots right there. That's what those two little teeth fit in. So that's going to go right there, and you'll feel it lock in there. Next thing that goes on there are drag washers. Okay, these are kind of bent a little bit. We'll call the bent outside, we'll call that the belly. On this first one, we want the belly to go down. On this one, we want the belly to go up. And you'll see that creates a little space there, and that'll help when you put your drag star on there, that'll help create some tension in there. Okay, and then we had this little flat, looks like a copper washer that goes on top of that. All right, so we're good there. I'm gonna wipe my hands off. Okay, next thing, we took out this roller bearing. Okay, this roller bearing fits right down in there, and this is your anti-reverse. All right, so, well, all right, so we're gonna have to redo this here because I don't know which side that is now. What I'm gonna do is put this in here. This collar rides inside here. Just put that in there. And see, this is a right hand reel, so I'm going to want to turn it that way. I can't do it, so that means I've got the wrong side up. So this side here goes up. You'll see that rides in it. If I'm reeling it forward like I normally would on the right hand reel, it's fine. I try to go back, it stops it. All right, so this side goes up. All right, so that fits right in there. We're good on that. All right, now we can go ahead and put these on again. Again, the belly of the first one. Come on. Belly of the first one, I believe, goes down. Belly of the second one goes up. Then we have, oh, come on, Greg. All right. Kind of keep getting ahead of myself. I apologize for that. There we go. Again, that messes with that. Those two little points go down and they go right into there. All right, we're good there. Now let's do these one more time. Belly goes down. Belly goes up. Then we have that flat washer. All right, so there is that part of our reel. Let's put this side case on real quick. You'll remember we laid those screws out right there where we could see them. Okay. So first thing we have to do, we have to put those two pinion yoke springs on. There those are right there. We'll just set one right there. One right here. And then we're just going to feed this. Right over in here. Tell you what I'm going to do. Sometimes it's easier for those spacers to be put on last, so we'll go ahead and do that. We'll leave that collar on there. Put that spacer over there. There we go. All right, that fits really nicely. So let's put the screws in first, and then we'll do those for what, the third time now? All right. First thing, we're going to put this one in. That was the longer of them. I kind of hold that against the frame and just kind of keep it tight. I'll do this bottom one here. So I'm kind of diagonal from where I was. I'll put this bottom one in here. Now I noticed when I was looking at some of this video that I had the reel out of the frame for a little bit. So if there's something in here that I missed that you have a question about, just put it down in the comments and I will get you, I'll answer as quick as I can. All right, so there we go. All right. Now let's go ahead and put the spool in here. That spool shaft goes right in there. And then this will sit down right there. All right, so good there. That's gonna be freaking nice. Yeah, okay. All right, so one more time. Belly down. Belly up. And we have our flat washer. All right. All right, real quick. One small thing we forgot is in this, for the spool tension knob, there is this spring. So we just set that on there. And then put that right back on there. All right, there we go. All right, next thing we have this little square nut that goes on. All right, apparently the other dog wants in. I'm checking to make sure, okay, that there isn't a groove for that spring to go in. I thought I had it laid down the right way, and I did. All right, we'll grab the dog again. All right, appreciate your patience with them. Trust me, they try my patience. All right, next thing we're gonna do, this spring goes next. Then we have the star drag adjuster. You'll see it's square in there. Obviously that's gonna go right over the square. The square nut there. You can hold that down. That little washer on there. Handle on here. Handle nut. Got to kind of hold this down because that that spring is pushing out against it. Nice. You notice it's a little bit slower than it was beforehand, and that is because we've got some lubrication on this reel now. Okay, so once it's used a little bit, it will get to the point where it's got that incredible free spool again. Okay, to get this cap to match, good rule of thumb, if you have one of these points here facing that little hole, like that, it should work. Let's see how we did. Looks like that's going to work. Let's get this screw in there. believe we're done. All right, get up here. All right, we got some good drag there. Nice. We've got our spool tensioner knob there. Looks really good. It's got really good, still got really good free spool. Look at that. And then super smooth. All right. Thank you all for watching. This is your Shimano Chronarch 50 MG. Like he says, 22 years old. Just an incredible reel. See how smooth everything is? So that's after being serviced. It can fish for another 20 years without any problems. Please, if you like the videos like this, like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification button so it'll tell you when I've got a video coming up. And if you would like your reel serviced, reach out to me at gregsreelrevival@gmail.com, and we will get an email sent back and forth and figure out what it'll cost you and how quick I can get it back to you. Thank y'all for watching.